Sensory receptors, mechanoreceptors, is a sensory receptor that responds to mechanical pressure or distortion. An example, pressure, touch, stretch, motion, and sound. Thermoreceptors are specialized nerve cells that are able to detect differences in temperature. Chemoreceptors are a type of sensory receptor that specialize in detecting chemical substances, either indigenous or foreign. An example, smell and taste. Electromagnetic receptors is a neurological receptor that responds to light, electricity, and magnetism. Pain receptor responds to excess heat, pressure, and chemicals. The following are examples. For chemoreceptors, antennae of male silkworm moth have hair sensitive to sex pheromones released by the female. And other examples. First will be the reception, where the stimulus will be detected. Next will be the sensation, where the actions reach the brain via sensory neurons. And the perception, where the information will be processed in the brain.
For sensing, the outer organ used by organisms in gathering auditory information or sounds is the ear. The human ear is composed of three main parts, which are the outer, middle, and inner ears. Sounds from the environment are gathered specifically by the part of the ear which is called pinna, the visible part of the ear that acts as a funnel in gathering sound. These sound waves then enters and travels through the auditory canal up to the tympanic membrane. The tympanic membrane, which is also known as the eardrum, is a thin layer of tissue that separates the middle and outer parts of the ear. Upon receiving the vibration, the tympanic membrane then vibrates, which in turn also gives vibration to the three tiny bones that are located beside it. These tiny bones are called malleus, incus, and stapes. As they vibrate, the vibration is also received by the cochlea, which is located beside the stapes. The cochlea is a fluid-filled, snail-shaped part that is connected to the sensory neurons that sends information to the brain. Focusing on the cochlea, a part of it is the organ of Corti, that is the receptor organ for hearing. As for the vestibular canal, it detects low-pitched sounds such as the drum, while the tympanic canal detects high-pitched sounds such as the flute. As vibration is given by the stapes to the cochlea, the fluid inside moves through the cochlear duct. Hair cells can be found inside the cochlea along with the fluid. As the fluid moves due to the vibrations or waves, the hair cells also moves. This movement of hair cells are then converted into electrical signals or ions, which will then be sent to the auditory nerve as signals to deliver the information to the brain. The ear is also known for detecting balance for head movements. As discussed earlier, the part of the ear that is fluid-filled and snail-shaped, which is the cochlea, this part is also connected to three semicircular canals. These semicircular canals are filled with liquid or fluid that is called endolymph. At the ends of these semicircular canals are open areas which are called ampullas. Hair cells are located within this area that identifies the head movement. And when these hair cells are moved, the movement of hair cells are then converted into electrical signals that is transmitted through the nerve fibers, which brings the information to the brain.
The sensory ligament prevents downward displacement of the eye, where the cornea focuses the enter of light And for the iris, it controls the size of the pupil. For the pupil, it allows the light to enter the eye so it can be focused on the retina to begin the process of sight. For the aqueous humor, nourishes the cornea and the lens and gives the eye its shape. For the lens, it focuses of light rays that pass through in it in order to create clear images or objects that are positioned at various distance. Vitreous humor helps protecting our eyes. It also helps hold its spherical shape. For the optic disc or the blind spot, the point in the eye where the optic nerve fibers leave the retina. For the optic nerve, a nerve that transmits visual information from the retina to the brain. For the fovea, it forms the sight which produces the sharpest vision and greatest color discrimination. For the retina, it receives the light that the lens has focused or convert the light into neutral signals. Send these signals onto the brain for visual recognition. Choroid contains blood vessel that nourishes the retina. The sclera, the top outer cord that protects the entire eyeball. For the compound eyes, also called as arthropod eye, made up of repeated units called ommatidia, each of which function act as a separate visual receptor. Vertebrates has three different kinds of eye function: the rods, the cones, and the rhodops vein. Rods are photoreceptors nerve cells in the eyes that are sensitive to low light levels and are present in the retina but outside the macula. For the cones, the photoreceptor nerve cells present in the macula and concentrated in the fovea. It enables people to see the fine details and color. Lastly, rhodopsin, light-absorbing pigment that triggers signal transduction pathway that leads to sight.
There are three types of skeletons. First, the hydrostatic skeleton. They are fluid, under pressure enclosed body compartment, or a flexible skeleton supported by fluid pressure. Hydrostatic skeletons are common among simple invertebrate organisms. Exoskeletons. They are hard encasements on surface of an animal. The external skeleton that supports and protects an animal's body, in contrast to the internal skeleton. Examples of animals with exoskeletons include insects such as grasshoppers and cockroaches, and crabs and lobsters. And lastly, endoskeletons. They are hard supporting elements buried within soft tissues, or an endoskeleton is a skeleton that is on the inside of a body. One example is the human bony skeleton. For the skeletal muscle structures, the muscles are attached to the bones by tendons. There are three types of muscle: the smooth, cardiac, and skeletal. The smooth muscles are for internal organs. The cardiac is for the muscles of the heart. And the lastly, skeletal, they are attached to the bones. A one long fiber is a single muscle cell, and each muscle fiber are composed of bundles of myofibrils that are made up of actin and myosin. Internal organs: the cardiac for the muscles of the heart, and lastly the skeletal, attached to the bones. A one long fiber is a single muscle, and each muscle are composed of bundles of myofibrils that are made up of actin and myosin. The first picture shows a relaxed muscle fiber. A relaxed muscle fiber has actin and myosin overlap. The second picture shows a contracting muscle fiber. Muscle fiber stimulated by motor neurons. The length of the sarcomere is reduced. actin slides over myosin. And lastly, the last picture shows a fully contracted muscle fiber. The actin and myosin completely overlaps.
Muscles contract or relax whenever they receive signal from the nervous system. In the sarcomere, alternative filaments can be found, which are the actin and the myosin that slides past to each other. When the muscles are relaxed, the sarcomere is in its normal size, but it reduces when the muscle starts to contract, wherein the actin slides over the myosin and makes the two completely overlap when the muscle is fully contracted. How is the muscle contraction works? First, the motor neuron sent by the nervous system will attach to the neuromuscular junction wherein the synaptic terminal and the muscle fibers connect. It will receive a signal, or also called acetylcholine. The acetylcholine or the signal would be released from the motor neuron to depolarize the muscle fibers. And it will signal the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release calcium. Muscle contractions are controlled by the action of calcium. When the calcium is released and the ATPs are present, calcium ions will displace the tropomyosin and expose the myosin binding sites on actin. When the ATP in the myosin is hydrolyzed, cross bridge will be formed between the myosin and the actin as the myosin attaches to the binding sites of the actin. Hydrolyzation of ATP is the cause for the myosin's action. The actin will be pulled toward the center as the myosin exerts force onto it. The pulling action of the myosin is called power stroke, and the mechanism between it is called sliding filament. As the muscle slowly contracts, the myosin pulls the actin until the two filaments completely overlaps. This explains the reason why the sarcomere reduces its size as the muscle contracts.
So for the speed of muscle contractions, fast fibers are brief, rapid, and powerful contractions, while slow fibers sustain long contractions. Here's a table of the types of skeletal muscle fibers and how each of the following will react to it. Last are the problems. ALS, or also called as Lou Gehrig's disease, is characterized by stiff muscles, muscle twitching, and gradually worsening weakness due to muscles decreasing size. Botulism is a rare and potential fatal illness caused by a toxin produced by the bacterium Clostridium botulinum. Block release of the acetylcholine paralyzes muscles. Myasthenia gravis is a long-term neuromuscular disease that leads to varying degrees of skeletal muscle weakness. Autoimmune disorder produces antibodies to acetylcholine. Calcium deficiency, a low blood level of calcium which can make the nervous system highly irritable, causing spasms of the hands and feet. Muscle cramps, abdominal cramps, overly active reflexes, and so on. In rigor mortis, there is no ATP to break actin-myosin bonds. Sustained muscle contractions until breakdown.